Some urban legends don't get around much. Other stories, like the following one, have been heard by almost everyone. But is this because it's true, or because it's terrifying?
It begins with an eager teenage boy picking up his girlfriend for a date.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Tonight is a special night. The boy has big plans. He isn't just taking his girlfriend to the movies. He has a different destination in mind, and he's feeling lucky. The boy drives to a remote area, commonly known as Lover's Lane. Dark and secluded, the couple is completely alone. Or are they?
We're here.
With typical teenage bravado, the boy moves closer to the girl. Noting her discomfort, he turns on the radio in hopes of putting her in a more romantic mood. But the romantic mood is interrupted with an emergency broadcast.
Local police have asked you to be on
A serial killer has escaped from the local mental hospital. He's armed with a hook hand, which he uses to slash the throats of his victims.
That guy just got out of prison.
The girl is terrified. She wants to leave.
It makes me nervous. I don't want to be out here with some guy running around.
Don't worry about it. Come on. We're all right.
The boy has no intention of abandoning his plans.
We're all right.
Eventually, the boy's persistence pays off. The girl relaxes a little. But there's no one around for miles, and the girl is worried about more than an escaped serial killer. She grows more and more uncomfortable until her mind races. She's certain of what she saw.
No, I did. I just saw something.
In spite of the girl's panic, the boy is not ready to give up. He is intent on continuing to make out.
Did you hear that?
The girl has had enough.
No, I just heard something.
She wants to leave and won't take no for an answer.
Let's go!
Fine!
Let's go.
The couple drives away quickly and in silence. Back at her house, the boy begins to feel ashamed for his behavior. As he goes to open the door for his girlfriend, he sees it. Dangling from the door handle, a hook. Is it a true story, or is it an urban legend? Either way, the hook contains a powerful message about adolescent sexuality.
Come here.
And who better to explain the meanings behind this story than LA sex therapist Dr. Susan Block?
It's a rite of passage. It's something everyone experiences. Making out in the car, Lover's Lane. It's kind of an innocent passion, but it gives you the impression that it could get out of control. So there is a real danger to just making out in the car, but the hook ups the ante. It makes the danger a horror story. It plays not only on our sense of sex and excitement, but it plays on our sense of fear. So it hooks us in a way with the sex, and then it leaves us with this horror image.
The hook story has circulated since the 1940s, for almost as long as there's been cars for couples to park in. Sometimes the story happens in Texas, other times a quiet town in upstate New York. But in every case, the story happens in what could easily be your hometown. In 1960, Dear Abby catapulted the tale into the national spotlight when she published The Hook in her advice column. The story was a warning letter from one of her readers. No matter how often the story is told, the moral lesson is always geared towards young women.
It seems like it's mostly the girl's responsibility to repress the sexual feelings of the couple.
Come on, relax.
And it sends a message to girls that, you know, if you don't put the brakes on your sexuality, you're going to get hooked.
The girl should fear not only the escaped killer, but also the boy himself.
The hook, in a way, represents unleashed sexuality. It's kind of a warped phallic symbol. In the hook, the boy is aggressive, and there is an expression, guys like to get their hooks into a girl. And I think that expression does come from a guy wanting to penetrate a girl.
The story's durability may have something to do with the human psyche.
If you were to take a poll of how many people had their first or earliest sexual experiences in cars, you'd probably find a whole lot of people raising their hands. So one, we have this wonderful, plausible evidence for it happening. And then we plug in our fears. We just plug into it the things that have scared us for a long time. That's, you know, which in this case is the psycho killer.
The Hook may be a chilling cautionary tale, but could it really happen? Do people really have hook hands? Rick Chavez is not only a certified prosthetist, but is himself an amputee.
I've had the hook hand, or as we call it, a prosthesis, 41 years. I feel so comfortable with this, it's just integrated in my life. I mean, I put it on in the morning, I take it off at night before I go to bed. At this point in my life, I don't know any difference. It's like wearing glasses. It's held on with a strap. Then this crosses my back, and this strap hooks up to the cable. So when I flex my arm forward in that nature, what that does, it pulls on the cable, and that opens the terminal device. And when I relax, the rubber bands close it. It's just a simple, like a 2-class lever. You can get it wet. They're very functional. There's very little things that can break on it.
What about the hook as a ghastly murder weapon? Rick feels that the tale is an unfair representation of the physically disabled.
You're putting fear into people, and so you're equating fear, murder, all the bad things that you could conjure up in a bad dream onto one person with a prosthesis. And that's not what the prosthesis is for.
Richard Borick of the UCLA Medical Center agrees.
Technically, I don't think the hook would even be a good device for this story because it isn't that sharp on the end. It's actually kind of dull, and it has a radius almost the size of a dime. You know, it opens up to hold things, but it's not really sharp enough to slit anything.
In reality, a hook hand may not be any more dangerous than your own hand. So, did it actually happen?
You know, I don't know specifically of a hook hand serial killer, but where this story comes from is a Lover's Lane type homicide. And there are a lot of Lover's Lane type homicides. It's something that certainly could happen. The likelihood of having someone with a hook hand who's also a serial killer, obviously the percentage of it goes down, and that's what makes that probably an urban legend.
Although no serial killer on record has ever used a hook hand, the story may be based on a series of real-life murders. In 1946, Texarkana was the site of a series of unsolved deaths known as the Phantom Murders.
When you talk about the Phantom Murders, you have to go back over a 4-month period. You start in February and you end in May. And February the 23rd, a young couple was parked in a lonely road outside of Texarkana, and a man came up out of the night and he brandished a gun. He beat the man unconscious, woman, she managed to escape and run away.
The attacks continued, turning from beatings to killings. National attention focused on Texarkana, and after 2 double homicides, the police made an arrest. Due to a legal technicality, the suspect was not charged, and the Phantom murders were never officially solved. Over 50 years later, the Phantom murders remains one of the great unsolved crimes of the 20th century, and may even be the inspiration for the Hook, one of the greatest urban legends of all time.